What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to part 3 of my 16-2 Red Flag Mission 3 Fighter Sweep video. Now this is the part where we'll be analyzing everything that's happened. In the previous part, part 2 was us actually flying the engagement and the fighter sweep itself, and then part 1 was the mission brief followed by the departure. If you guys are interested, please feel free to check those videos out. I do believe they are quite interesting, and in this one we are going to be going over everything that's happened and analyzing it, and just seeing things that we could potentially improve on, and things that we can learn from this, which is effectively the point of the red flag exercise. We have 2 good engine starts. You're clear to disconnect the headset. We'll see you on the left with the pin. Thanks a lot. We are now departed Nellis Air Force Base, pushing out to our Marshall locations along with multiple flights ahead of us, and we are the 4-3 flight, so a 4-ship of F-18s, and we'll be working in conjunction with 4-4, which are out here. This is a 4-ship of F-15s, and they'll be doing a fighter sweep at the same time as us, except they'll be pushing in from the south out westbound, and we'll be pushing in from the north out westbound towards enemy lines. Now, we have multiple other strike aircraft that we will be effectively sanitizing the airspace for. We've got these Hawk flights which will be attacking the front line around here, just around the FIBA. The FIBA is the front line, which is running around about there. We then have the Tornadoes, the Uzi flights, which are the SEAD flights, attacking surface-to-air missile systems out here. And also the Colt flight here, the F-16s, which are now holding. They are also a SEAD flight that will be attacking SAM sites in behind enemy lines. We then have the Dodge flights, which are these F-15s. They'll be attacking various targets, including command and control posts. And our job, doing the fighter sweep out from the north side. We've got some support aircraft. We've got the Arco tanker here. We've got our AWACS, which is call sign Overlord, and we have another tanker down there somewhere, which is the shell tanker. Actually, sorry, this is Overlord, and the shell tanker is down there. We've now come up to our hold location, so we're in the northern hold Alaska. We've got other flights holding just to the south of us, getting ready for the push time of 1610. Now, at this point, I was trying to effectively try and make our trajectory such that we could push pretty much on time. I think I was a little bit behind by the time we made the turn. By the time the push time came, I guess we were slightly behind the waypoint where we should have been. Now, it didn't really affect the mission much because Fort 4, I believe, was actually in a very similar position, so they actually pushed pretty much at the same time as us. So it actually all worked out really well. There's Fort 4 there now pushing in, or sweeping and sanitizing the airspace adjacent to us. Now, over here, we've got some manpad threats. We are aware of those. Those are supposed to be Russian special forces and operating behind the front line, which just runs around about here. That's the FIBA between Belted Peak and Reviel Peak on this side. All these strike packages are supposed to be pushing in a few minutes behind us, so you will see that they will be pushing in at some point. We'll try and stay ahead of the game and keep situational awareness going as much as possible, and basically know where everybody is. These Chevy flights here, they're providing caps. They're going to stay in these cap zones irrespective of what we are doing here, doing the fighter sweep, because they are providing the last line of defense for any aircraft behind on the east side, especially our support aircraft, the 2 tankers and the AWACS. So at this point, I knew that Overlord was reporting 2 groups of MiG-29s operating out to the northwest of the bullseye. I knew that we're going to be overflying this location, so we knew that we'll be encountering these flights at some point. But for whatever reason, right now, I remembered that AWACS has lost contacts, and we sort of went blind. We didn't actually have anything to see in our data link, and the Overlord AWACS was reporting that it was picture clean, which was kind of ridiculous. But we knew that these flights are here, and I guess that's something that could happen in real life as well. Of course, you know, an AWACS could potentially lose contacts for whatever reasons. So that could be realistic, I guess, as well. Now Ford 4 pushing in almost simultaneously with us to the south, so that actually worked ideal. We're supposed to push in from the north side, sort of swoop in behind these SA-19 sites, and then establish a cap right about here around the front line. Ford 4 is supposed to do the opposite. They're coming in from the south, coming in northbound here and establishing a cap on the north side until all strikers have hit their targets and then egressed out. Now, as you can see, the red side has a plethora of surface-to-air missile systems. They've got everything from SA-19 to Guskas to SA-11s, SA-15s, and I actually believe there may be an SA-10 that pops up here at some point, but that was never briefed, so we are not aware of that. And again, of course, in real life, that is exactly what could potentially happen. You're never going to know every threat that is out there, especially SA-10s, which are so mobile and they can just come and get their launchers erected, giggity, out there at some point and basically pop out of nowhere. So at this point, I think we were still struggling to get a lock on these MiGs, or even trying to find these MiGs. I think AWACS was still blind at this point, and one thing that we should have done and could have done is switch the radar from high PRF to a medium PRF to increase our chances of finding aircraft which are flying away from us. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. We've pushed out our wingmen to a spread echelon right formation, and at this point I believe when these bandits are turning in hot, we do finally get a lock. I do realize that we have a lock on them, and at this point we are maintaining a little bit of a crank flying out towards them. Now, because we knew that these are armed with effectively R-27s and R-27ERs probably, or maybe ETs or Ts, obviously these missiles are never going to have the sort of range that our AMRAAMs have, all things being equal, provided both aircraft are at high speed. As you can see, the MiGs here are still well subsonic. We are now supersonic, getting a nice AIM-120 shot. Now, I've bugged both of these contacts, and I've basically switched targets immediately using the LNS and fired off a second AMRAAM here. Started the crank. At this point I told my flight to cover me, which effectively means if they see a threat within an area here that's close to us, they will engage them. So both of the MiGs have gone defensive. Both AMRAAMs are tracking quite nicely. I've taken a crank, and I've decided that I'm going to turn it inbound again because I didn't have any RWR indications for them firing on me, so I thought, why not try and recommit. Now, of course, there is a threat with these Russian aircraft that they could have fired a heat seeker on R-27T potentially, but at this point it wasn't necessary. Both AMRAAMs hit their targets perfectly, and effectively my third AMRAAM was wasted. We immediately then switched to the second cap flight of the MiGs here. Now we're pushing into this area, which is well into the threat ring of these SAM systems here, as you can see, which is a little bit dangerous. Now, I knew that we were right on the edge of the threat ring, so I knew we had very limited time to try and get these guys or attack these guys. And what happens is effectively I get one AIM-120 off, and it's a shame that I didn't buck the second contact. That's what I should have done. They were quite close together. It was a little bit difficult, but I should have done it because I knew there was two of them, so I should have done the exact same trick as what I've done with the other two MiGs. Just get an AIM-120 in there straight away. Now, of course, with us having these radar-guided missiles, or active radar-guided missiles, against these effectively R-27Rs that these MiGs are firing, now we have a huge advantage in terms of firepower in that sense. Now, if we were expecting these to be something like R-77s or Su-30s or Su-35s, the game plan could be completely different, because we are very aggressive, very committed. Now, as you can see, this R-27 actually seems to just miss one of my wingmen here, and he's fired another R-73, which does actually hit. Now, I'm not sure exactly what happened. Maybe he damaged him. There's an AIM-9X that went and missed the MiG, So at this point, these guys are entangled in this furball. I am flying out cold, and I knew that this was happening because I could see all these data links, and I knew all my wingmen were effectively entangled in there. So I actually saw the MiG-29 was sort of looked like it's pursuing me, and I believe it actually probably is pursuing me because he seems to be completely ignoring the wingman that is flying right next to him. I don't know if that's because he hit him before, so he thinks he's gonna die, but whatever has been happening here is quite strange. Both of these guys have 0 SA. The wingman has no idea that he's there, and the bandit has no idea that the wingman's there. So I turn inbound hot now, of course, thinking I'm going to recommit. I knew that I was outside the threat ring, but at this point the MiG seems to feel threatened by, I guess, my flight, and so he turns cold away from me and basically makes it sort of an easy target, except I think I still had the radar. I think I might have had the radar in medium PRF. I really definitely should have had the medium or at least interleaved at that point. The MiG is now attacking our flight, and then he gets knocked out. So as you can see, our guys did get hit, but they're not down. Now I don't know if it's because the mechanics are such that our flight cannot die as well, because I know if we get hit, then we effectively have to fly out to an imaginary line here somewhere behind the FIBA to then reset and be able to recommit. Now, it hasn't happened to me in this mission, but that is one of the mechanics that's being used to simulate a realistic sort of red flag scenario. But as you can see, our wingman got hit, and I don't know why they're not dead at this point, but as you'll see later on, I do believe that at least 1 or 2 of them do actually crash. So I don't know if that was just some damage that they were carrying from earlier on. But at this point, it's all fine. We're in behind these SN19s. Forward flight was now coming from the other side. As you can see, we've crossed paths pretty much exactly as we were planning, except they weren't really here to help us at all. I guess they had to avoid these threat rings and come around behind them, so they were a little limited in terms of which path they could take, or they wanted to be quite careful there. Now this Uzi flight here gets hit and obliterated and gets shot down, so I think that's where we heard Uzi 2, you're down from Showtime. So I don't know if this Uzi 2 flight is then going to fly out effectively and reset, or because his wingman was shot down at this point. So the cold flight comes in here and fires off their harms out to the surface to air radars out here, and then they've got a whole bunch of SAMs flying in towards them, but this thing, there's a couple of direct hits on there. We've got more AGMs, AGM-88s being fired off by the cold flight at this point. Now some short range SAM systems here affecting me as well, although as you can see, I'm not sure exactly what happened here. I fired off a missile, and I'm actually a little bit confused what happened here, because I believe on my radar I did see something and I did block something up, but for whatever reason on the replay, it appears that I've been firing, whether it was, I don't think if I fired at any friendly aircraft. It was just into empty space. I'm a little bit confused as to what happened there. At this point, AWACS was reporting that there was something out here, but there's nothing here on the replay. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that to the gods to decipher, because I was very, very confused as to what actually happened here. Now the MiG-29s have scrambled out of Tonopah. I believe in the video I said that they got regenerated in one of the north zones here. I was wrong. They actually did take off from Tonopah. We did get, Showtime did tell us, or Bunyap's boys did tell us about that, and at this point we're aware that they're there somewhere. But at the same time, we decided that we are going to be pushing through as briefed or as fragged into a sort of southerly sweep and then back out into the cap zone here. So my plan sort of was to go outside these threat rings, outside these SAM rings, and then effectively establish a cap here. We can then swing our nose inbound and have a nice clear picture, instead of turning inbound towards the bandits at this point, because we are, as you can tell, sort of within close proximity to a lot of threats that could make our day quite unenjoyable. So at this point we just keep pushing out here, So these MiGs, they are now pursuing the dodge flight, I believe, and one of them turns inbound hot on us, actually. And at this point I start realizing we're getting picture calls all the time, and I do realize that at this point he's very, very close when I look on the SA page. So this is definitely something I could have maybe anticipated a little earlier on. We were over here, swing out south, and then turn in northbound again, instead of effectively cutting back across. And now when we commit, we are within these SA-15 sites, I believe, which is, well, quite frankly, making life extremely dangerous for us. So two of our wingman have committed onto the MiG, and they're now effectively playing with fire around, both with the MiG firing on them, and then they have the SA-19 Tunguska's protecting that area as well. Now, thankfully, it looks like this R-27 has been highly ineffective. At this point, we are inbound hot, and this is where I should have probably started looking out the window a little bit sooner. I was really trying to focus on my radar at close range to try and lock this guy up. I mean, I knew where he was. I could see in the data link contact where he was. I was extremely lucky. I think I saw this trail come through just underneath me, and it was actually my wingman that got fired upon. But I knew he was right there, so he hit my wingman, and he's got another R-73 here just to finish the job. So on my side, I think this was a miscalculation in the sense that by the time I went to an AIM-9X and into one of the ACM modes, we've effectively already crossed paths. So I wasn't really looking in time. I should have started scouring the area around me with the Mark 1 eyeball, instead of basically just being glued to the radar screen. And I think that's what really let me down. I lost total situational awareness here. I knew where I was in relative to the threat rings. I knew that I was safe from there, but what I did not know is that the MiG-29 is actually flown by and then effectively headed out eastbound. Now, as you can see, Ford 4 finally doing their job, and finally basically absolutely annihilating that poor MiG with about 5 billion AIM-120s, some of which were wasted. That's a lot of US taxpayers' money there going into hitting the ground for no good reason, really. But at least they have knocked out the MiG there, and I believe that was effectively the last engagement that we've had here. One thing that I didn't notice is actually we're getting very close to the container, and this is where we had Showtime tell us that we need to make an immediate right turn, or a left turn, or just basically a turn away from the container. At this point, I think we also got told, I could see in our data links, that these guys were already bugging out, so I knew that the strike packages had probably finished their job, although I wasn't 100% sure if these guys behind us were all any of these were strike packages, or whether or not that was the any of the cap flights or the any of the sweep flights. So at this point, I realized we got a message saying that all strikers have egressed the area, and from here on we effectively bug out, and then I try and decide whether or not we should hit a tanker or not. I did at one point decide that we are going to hit a tanker, because I hit bingo fuel around about here at some point, and I had a bit of trouble for some reason getting a hold of the tanker. I couldn't contact them on the frequency, they weren't replying. For whatever reason, I also couldn't get the TACAN to display from them, even though I did have the TACANs written down correctly, at least according to the mission brief. So I don't really know what happened. We then just used the FPAS page to calculate the most efficient cruise and all that kind of stuff for our current fuel burn, and then effectively recovered back to Nellis with about 500 pounds on landing. So it all worked out okay. In the end, I think it was a fantastic first red flag mission. I think we did a great job of trying to keep the situational awareness going, and I think a big part of that is definitely the SA page in the F-18. That's been a big part, and also the Jehamics giving us all the data link contacts. Without that, I mean, it would be extremely difficult if you just had the RWR to rely upon, like it's some older aircraft. So if you guys are planning on flying this mission in the Mirage, for example, I mean, it'll be extremely fun, but it'll be unbelievably challenging, just because your situational awareness is just going to be relatively poor compared to a sort of modern 4th gen fighter with all the data link gizmos. So that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this little overview. If you have any comments at all about what we did and whether or not you have any suggestions with regards to weapons employment or systems management, and yeah, as you can see, I'm not really sure what happened here, but one of our wingmen decided to bail out, and I genuinely do. I think he ran out of fuel, if I had to guess. I think that's what happened there. But this is just one of those problems with DCS. I mean, maybe when he called bingo fuel back there, I could have potentially selected him in the radio menu and then sent him out to a tanker. I think maybe that was potentially a way of mitigating that from happening. But if you guys have any suggestions at all with regards to what I've done, whether or not I can improve, I'm always keen to learn, of course. I know there's professionals out there flying the F-18 considerably more than me, and yeah, I'll always be interested to know what you guys have to say. And if there's any other immersive campaigns or missions that you guys have flown, please let me know in the comments. Would love to know about it, just to see, because I think these kind of missions are very rare. There's a lot of great mission makers out there and a lot of great campaign makers out there, but unfortunately I'm just not interested in them because they're so, I would say, sort of trigger driven and skirmish driven, that you just don't have like a big giant aerial warfare going on. You don't have multiple packages out holding. And also, one of the things I love about this campaign is that all of this stuff will play out regardless of whether or not you fly the route or not. So it's up to you. If you stray off for whatever reason from your assigned route, the mission will still work. And it's up to you to then make up time and be there on time, etc., etc. Because that is effectively the way a real world war would play out. I mean, these flights, they'll be pushing in at the right time, and if you're not there, you're not there. I mean, potentially, unless you are the absolute key and instrumental to the mission, the chances are they will push regardless, and you're just going to be letting them down. So in that sense, I think it's just a fantastic set of missions in this campaign. I'm looking forward to bringing you some more missions in the near future, and like I say, if you would like to see something in particular from any other campaigns or missions, then please let me know in the comments below. If you would like to see the recovery back at Nellis, then stick around to the end of the video, but if not, then hopefully you've enjoyed this little debrief, and I look forward to catching you in the next one. There's our 1500 feet. Maintain that. We've got a little bit of turbulence here, which is pretty cool. Super cool location. I was here actually a few months ago. Alright, let's do the break. Coming out to a heading of about 030. The G's nicely, just try and maintain that altitude as well, that height. Actually, will be more useful because the ground rises up. We'll just go up to Barrow here for the moment. 030 is coming up. Gear down. First stage of flaps. Landing a light is on. I'll just balloon slightly here. And we'll start our turn inbound. A little bit of turbulence here is quite nice. Just getting blown off slightly by the wind. Just make sure nobody's final approach. No, that's good. Still a little high. Alright, somebody's coming in here. It's an F-18. Not 100% sure which runway he's landing on. I think he's taking the... Okay, he's taking the right runway. We're taking the left runway. Oh yeah, ideal. Oh, there's another F-18 here as well. He's also taking the right runway, which is perfect. This is going to be... Wow, there's a lot of F-18s coming in all at once. This is pretty cool, actually. There's a little bit of crosswind here. To stabilize it nicely. Oh, it's just a little much. A little bit of turbulence messing around with us here. Probably a little bit steeper than I would like to come in, but it's not too bad. Idle thrust. Pull up a little. There we go. Speed brake coming out. Although we don't need to use much of it, which is good. Well, that's it for this one, folks. If you've enjoyed this new video format, please let me know in the comment section below. And if there's any missions or campaigns that you would be interested in seeing me fly, then please also make sure to comment those down below. But otherwise, that's it from me. Make sure to check out my new website for buying and selling aircraft, WINGLIST. But otherwise, I shall catch you in the next one. Adios!